Okay, part two of the mashing series is now that I've got the corn completely sparged out, there's no more corn left in this pan. I've extracted all of the starch from the corn. Well, maybe not all, but as much as humanly possible. In an hour and a half, I stirred that with my paddle probably at least 15 times, at least. Now, we're waiting for the temperature to come back up to 155, so we're not killing the enzymes in our malted grains. We started with about 3 of these containers of corn, which is about 12 pounds. Now I've got 2 containers of malted barley, which is probably, it weighs a little less than corn, so it's probably about 6 pounds, 6.5 pounds of barley, malted barley, 2-row barley. I don't use 4-row anymore. 2-row barley is much, much tastier and a tiny bit sweeter than 4-row, even though 4-row has far more conversion power. The 2-row is enough to get it done. And on top of that, we also have the malted wheat. I like a wheated moonshine batch, and this is malted wheat. It's slightly different than malted barley. You can tell by taking a look at it. Here's malted barley. There's the malted wheat. You can see the difference. Barley looks like a entire kernel. The wheat almost looks like oatmeal or oats or something like that. So we're gonna go with about 12 pounds of corn, 6.5 pounds of barley, maybe 7. These are pretty heavy. And about 3.5 pounds of wheat. So you can do the arithmetic on that, figure it out. I'm just waiting for this to get up to temperature. I should probably cover it. That'd help a little bit, right? Keep the temperature in. We got to get up to 155. Yeah, we get a little while. I got the temperature up to about medium high. And so, the one thing that I want to say is, and specify, everyone is different. Everyone does different things. I do not ferment on grain. There is absolutely no grain left in there. I've extracted the starch, took the corn out of there. Now all I've got is starch liquid. As soon as it gets up to 155, in goes the malted barley, in goes the malted wheat, and that'll sit for another hour or so, maybe a little bit more, depending on how much of that flavor. I don't like corn and sugar mashes. They're too sweet. They're kind of gross. If you have a high corn mash, you have a high sugar mash. A lot of people like to dump sugar in there. Mashes, it'll make you vomit. It's gross. It doesn't taste good. It tastes like shit. It tastes like what an amateur would make. Why would you want to be an amateur at something? You want to create the best mash humanly possible. Now, I understand financials. I understand being able to afford it. But luckily for me, I live in an area where I can get malted grains for about $55 for a 55-pound bag. Sometimes even cheaper. So I'm only paying about $1 per pound for malted barley and wheat. Corn is not malted. This corn here, the corn mash that I made, that's just cracked corn from Tractor Supply. That used to be 9 something a pound. Now it's 14 and change a pound. Fuck Joe Biden. Fucking let's go Brandon, bitch. Fucking when you pay 50% more in 2 years for something than you used to before, necessary stuff. Forget about making moonshine. What if you're a farmer who has to feed your livestock? You got a 50% increase you got to pay for? Fuck Joe Biden. Guy's a fucking imbecile. Literally nobody in the history of mankind has ever accused Joe Biden of being intelligent. Nobody ever, period. But this is what you're going to have to pay. Now, luckily for me, I have a place I can go to local, and he can get malted grains for a very, very reasonable. I probably pay 50% of what most local people pay, which is probably 50% of what people in the other parts of the country pay. Luckily for me, I can get malted grains at a very reasonable price, $55 for 55 pounds. I mean, that's just almost unheard of. $1 a pound. So, when this reaches 155, and we're creeping, I'll give it a stir here in a minute. 2 things of malted barley, 2 row barley are going in. 1 container of malted wheat. Both are malted. The corn is not. It's just cracked corn from Tractor Supply. That's going to stay in at 155 degree temperature for about an hour, maybe a little more. I'll give it a full taste. I'll check it out, give it a smell. You can leave it in there a little longer. Maybe you'll extract a little more of those flavors. That's entirely up to you. Everyone has the freedom to create their own mash bill. Everyone who does this is going to be forced to create their own mash bill. You are going to have to figure out what you can acquire, what ingredients you are capable of getting to put into it, and what tastes good to you. And these are the things that every individual who tries to create anything has to figure out. You have to figure out what works for you. The recipe that I'm talking about, it works for me. I do about 12 pounds of corn, 6.5 pounds of barley, and 3 to 3.5 pounds of wheat in 6.5 to 7 gallons of corn starch liquid. I mean, look at how thick that stuff is. You practically have to break the skin to get into it. I mean, that corn is just sticking to the thing. Now you know you've got all the starch out. So, this is part 2 of the rambling, half in the bag mash video. Oh, as a matter of fact, if you want to enjoy mashing in, perhaps you should try a little Willet straight rye whiskey. Cask strength. Comes out at almost 54%, almost 108 proof. Yeah. These are the things that you do when you make moonshine, when you make mashes, when you take your raw dog or white lightning and you put it into a barrel. These are the things you have to figure out. How do I want my product to taste? What do I like? What do I think my friends will like? What do I think my family will like? Whoever you're going to share it with, you have to figure out the things that make you happy. And for me, a high grain mash bill, a high malted grain mash bill with 2 row barley, and pretty soon I'll put the malted wheat in there. Those are the flavors I like. If you like corn and sugar, God bless you. Well, you know, that's up to you. But anyway, hopefully you people take care of yourselves. Hopefully you keep shining. And you're welcome for letting me ramble for the last 9 minutes. Later.